Right. All right, we'll call this long-range planning meeting to order at 6:34 PM. Sun Valley has a land acknowledgement and anti-racism statement. Those are posted on the Board of Directors website. Roll call tonight. From the Long-Range Planning Committee, we have Nancy, Barbara, Joshua, Sonia, and AJ here, and then Rick's joining us from the Board of Directors. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, that passes. Does anybody have any announcements? All right, property owner comments. We do not have any property owners in attendance tonight, so I will continue forward. So first item is a continuing business item of just kind of a follow-up from the strategic planning meeting that we had week or two ago now. And let me share my screen. All right, so in the agenda packet, we had kind of typed out and put together these basically what we worked on, and this is just Sonia spent some time putting it all into a document for us as opposed to on the pieces of paper. And so I think, you know, a lot of this will help kind of drive a discussion. We can talk about whether, you know, we have any, you know, adjustments that we want to see to any of this. And I think it can help drive discussions on what sort of questions we may need to ask the community in our survey this year. And help us drill down, you know, potentially drill down more on each of these individual areas, you know, like right now we see the rec corridor. There is more to, you know, there's a lot to the rec corridor, so we could have similar exercises for each of the various components and the major components in the rec corridor. You know, RN8. You know, what could be utilized for the ice barn area, things like that, so. I think initially we'll just kind of have a discussion here on, you know, the retreat, and I think it'll kind of mingle with kind of talking about the survey. We sent you guys a copy of the 2020 survey that we did. This is kind of the graphic that shows the overall numbers. And then here's the the survey with all of its stuff. So, you know, what we would be really looking for is there's like, you know, we have a baseline survey for, you know, determining our uses, our main uses and our, you know, those functions and stuff like that. And then we have a portion of the survey set aside for, you know, essentially large scale community questions that need to be answered, capital planning type questions that we need to get community feedback on. So I think, yeah, I don't know.
So DJ, is that okay?
What?
Can I expand on what you're saying just a little bit? Is that all right? So on that community survey, what we did is we went back. There's been just in the 50-year history of Sun Valley, there's been maybe 3 really good surveys. And those surveys, what we did is what we tried to identify, you know, some baseline questions from those older surveys, and also moving forward, you know, these performance type questions like board performance, GM performance, staff performance, you know, that type of thing, some the basic happiness and satisfaction level of membership that we really want to, those questions, we really intended to measure them annually, but it's a pretty big undertaking. And we need a different vehicle, like a portal. The intent had been that we would get a new customer service type software with membership portal, and everybody would have, be able to go in, and it'd be much easier to implement these surveys to where we would know that, these are actual legitimate members and take them. But this bigger survey is a huge undertaking, and so, and because it coincides with the strategic planning, the 3-year cycle, there's a section in there, what AJ was talking about, that is the capital questions. And these are the questions that help determine where is the board going to allocate resources. And so these questions are really, really important. And that's why I'm saying it kind of, they all work together, what we're going to discuss about strategic planning and also the survey, because we need to identify what are those questions, what things, some questions we don't need to ask the community, but because they're just like, let's say, basic maintenance, operational type, things. But others we really do, like when you're talking about multi-million dollars allocated to a certain expense, we really need to make sure we've got community input on that, and then we're moving in the right direction of what the membership wants. So thank you for letting me say that. I appreciate it.
So, yeah, like, these were kind of the capital questions that we did from the 2020 survey. And then here were kind of our, happiness and satisfaction with different amenities and things like that questions. So basically, a lot of this first part of the survey would stay exactly the same, so we can continue to generate, data time after time on the survey, and then, down here, we can reconfigure these things to, suit what we're trying to plan for the future. So I think, I don't know if everyone, I know, Josh, you weren't at the strategic planning meeting. I don't know if you had time to watch or look over, the document stuff, or if everyone had some time to look over the kind of synopsis documents of the meeting. I don't know if anyone wants to start there and just discuss anything from the meeting that they, anything additional that they've thought of, that maybe we need to consider adding to any of these things.
I did put I sent out today the coded the responses to the questionnaire that we sent out. Everybody was really late responding, so that's why it came out this afternoon. So you should have like a second document that came out today that shows that, and kind of. So at that meeting, there's a couple of things. One had to do with, we were asked to do a SWOT analysis on each of those areas, right? The rec corridor, the clubhouse, and the marina. And the other was to identify a draft vision statement. And that's what you can see on these sheets. Those are taken directly from the sheets of paper that were, posted onto the wall and everything. And so that's what you're seeing there. And then the other document that I sent out today was taken from the morning session where we were talking about goals from the strategic priorities. So this document, the one I sent today will have, has can you pop that one up? Do you have it, AJ? The other one that it's called strategic priority goals.
Sent it today.
Yeah.
seen it.
Hmm. What you have up right now looks like it's from that.
Yeah, so what it is I combined them into one document just to make it easier.
AJ is not on the recipient list of the email.
So you're not listed on long range planning group email?
You know,
Wait,
I
Thought
can
was,
forward
but-
it to him. Here, I'll forward
I just sent it to him. That's interesting.
it.
Staff still on here? Kyle, you need to add Joshua and AJ to the long range planning.
Can you see
Group.
it now, or is it still showing the other thing?
No, this is the new one.
I just reviewed it. It seems like a lot of people had the same ideas as me with what's important.
Which is really awesome. I mean, on these really important things that we've noticed that people tend to agree on, what are the priorities, and but that's the main thing, is this to kind of look at this and make sure, what do we agree on, what don't we agree, and so that we can start to build a planning process. So this first one is basically, that's the chart from the survey responses. And then the other there, AJ, is exactly what you're saying, like what did anybody identify on those strategic priority goals that they would, that maybe we didn't identify it during the meeting and they wanted to add it. And that's what other is down there. So I just captured them as they were written. And then the
Yeah.
next, oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I was going to ask a question regarding this one, or I mean, in general, over our meeting and everything that I've learned in the last few weeks. Because I see stable, predictable dues is very high with priority here. And I know that a lot of residents don't want dues to raise, but then at the same time, I look at how much needs to be done. Like realistically, my mind is like trying to wrap itself around all of these, buildings that need to be fixed up and repaired and all these culverts we have and things like that. And then I wonder, how do we do all that without raising dues at all? And I mean, I get like it's a balance of keeping people happy with not elevating dues, but at the same time, it's like, do we have enough money to do all?
So Barbara, just to be clear, did we have the dues do increase? This has to do with stable and reasonable dues increases. So
Okay.
you probably didn't live here, but in 2019, well, between 2017, I believe, and 2019, our dues increased 110%. We lost, a lot of members had to move because they could, it was the option of paying their assessments or paying for their medications. It's a really tough situation when dues increase like that, and that's due to not appropriate planning. That's why planning is so important. We have to do it reasonably. We have to do strategic, short-term and midterm planning, but also then long-term planning to ensure the maintenance of the assets that we have. But realistically, based on what our membership can pay and what they are willing to pay, that always has to be considered. And that's why it's real important to get feedback from the members, right? Because you may have a board that is like, well, this is exactly what happened in 2019, that board so a bylaw was passed that basically, the community, 84% of the voting members, voted to pass a bylaw that limits the annual dues assessments to no more than 7% annually. Because even that is pretty significant. It's not meant to happen every single year. You're not meant to raise them every single year 7%, but at least that way it's more palatable to people's budget and they can plan appropriately for their household. And
Of
it
course.
also makes, it kind of forces the management, the board and the management of this association to plan as well. And so you're not just, oh, we can do a special assessment. We can do, because there is a limitation on a special assessments too, unless it's an emergency. So an emergency, failing to plan is not an emergency.
Of course,
Right.
I didn't mean to get the conversation off
No,
track.
no, I think it's
No,
real
it's not
important
off
because,
track.
no,
I do appreciate like the feedback and information because I moved here in 2020, 2021. So obviously I missed that 110% increase.
and you and probably over 30% of the membership, because we turn over about that much in that period of time. And
Okay.
so, yeah, it's a real question and it's a really good question. That's why it's really important that we have thoughtful planning, right?
Completely
And
agree.
yeah. So thanks for asking that. And by the way, I'm talking about the finances. AJ's nice enough to let me do it, but I was the treasurer for 2 years. And so I kind of tend to jump in there when it starts to be about money and budgeting and everything. So I just figured I should explain why I tend to do that.
Yeah, so, it looks like the three most highly voted for issues in this first sustainability box was stable, predictable dues, achieve an accurate reserve study, which plays right into the dues, and
Mhm.
prioritize and plan maintenance, which ties right in. So clearly those three things come together to bring focus on
Mhm.
what you've been talking about. So I think the committee understands and is kind of bringing the interests of the members to this concept of sustainability and just wanting to have the best information possible so that we can minimize surprises on the dues increase. Right.
AJ?
Nancy, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a little rusty now at running meetings.
Well, you're on vacation, guy. That's understandable. The thing about a maintenance plan and repair plan is if it's all budgeted, it's all set up like Barn 8 is, yet the board does not want to do it this year. There goes your planning because it simply backs out. Even if the board does it the following year or two, it's going to back out something else that money was set up for. So I don't know how we deal with that, but I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Rick?
Yeah, so my understanding of that, of course, I'm new. I don't have virtually any history other than what I've read. But it seems to me that there's a variable, an unknown, which in my mind is potentially new information about whether to move forward because we're unclear about how much or how healthy the bones are of the barn before we start putting on a new skin, so to speak, kind of in kind of crass terms. But if there's a bunch of rot underneath there, you don't want to put new paint on a pig that's going to fall down, so to speak. So I think that's the way I understand it anyway, is why there's been some reticence to move ahead. at this time on that barn. Maybe I'm not understanding everything, but that's my perception.
AJ?
Well, it's all a bunch of perceptions because it's not being talked about. So,
So
I think, you know, the board allocated money for the project and it hasn't moved at all, and it was supposed to get done this spring for pool season, so that's out the window at this point. But, you know, there has been structural reports done on that barn several times over the years. All of them have come back that it's structurally sound. You know, it's never gonna be the new building that anyone would want that to be. It's a barn. It will always be a barn, you know, but it's a useful meeting space for our community. You know, and I think if we plan for a way for the gym to move out of there in the future, it provides a very useful, even more useful space for our community. To be able to meet and congregate in groups.
Mhm. Mhm.
So one of the things, and again, this is part of what we, you know, when AJ's talking about it's not being talked about, because these are the reasons that there's a concern, right? Because there is $900,000 allocated for work to be done on that building this year, and because they're reticent, I hear what you're saying, but because they're reticent, nothing is occurring, right? Nothing is occurring. And as Nancy likes to say, it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy because they're concerned about the building, and yet there's no movement forward on it one way or the other. So because this is why these conversations are important. Why are they reticent? And then the other question is what questions need to be answered so that a decision can be made, right? I would recommend, AJ and I've kind of talked about this, but and we've even talked about this, and Keith kind of agreed to it in a board meeting, where we need to have another strategic planning meeting that focuses on the barns only, because these are both complicated, both barns are complicated. There's a lot of decision making involved in that, and planning on both buildings, determining usage, and over what period of time. Same thing with the pavilion structure. What exactly, or how are we wanting to utilize that? Are we wanting to move at some point in the future, move the gym into that building? You know, are we wanting to, how do we want to phase that building? All of that matters because they have to plan that now, and you have to build the foundation for that future building, right? It has to be plumbed for any future build out and wired for any future build out. And, but all of those things need to be talked about and addressed, like whatever those issues are. Because anytime that you're refurbishing an older building, even with engineering reports, it's always an estimate until they get in there, right? Until we get closer and closer to it and they look at that, but we need to see like what is the issue? Why, what are we looking at? I mean, I'll give you an example. With the ice barn, we did everything we could to save that building. That building is salvageable, but at a certain point, because there was a lot of the posts were rotten, and the exterior had not been maintained for years and years and years and years. There was nothing done to the building, and so even though it could have been repaired, it was going to cost us almost as much as if we built a brand new building. And so, we initially started down that road with, we're going to refurbish the ice barn because we knew we could. But then once you get closer to it and you gather more information and there's, more review of it, in that particular situation, it did not make good financial sense to continue to try to, save the building, right? Then it was time to make a different plan on that building. we haven't even done that with the barn. There's nothing that it has shown us because as AJ mentioned, there are structural reports that actually say the building is structurally sound. You can, that, the issue is, from what I have heard, is that Keith is saying, well, rather than spending 1.2 million on this older building that may have these other issues and cost us a little bit more, we should just put it all into a brand new building over, you know, at the pavilion. And I've heard a few things, and again, that's why I don't even want to speculate because a lot of this has been like offhand comments, like Linda has said, well, one of the board directors has said about, you know, making it a 2-story building and the, you know, the GM has mentioned, you know, adding additional like office spaces and meeting spaces and making room, you know, for, I don't even recall what else, but you know, there was like all these different aspects, but it's just everybody's talking in little silos, right? We're not spending time together and actually making a plan and really looking at any real data regarding that building at all. And so I think we, the, you know, long range planning committee need to, you know, schedule another strategic planning meeting with the board and actually talk about these buildings and bring in our experts to actually discuss that and answer questions. You know, there's a, you know, structural engineer, we've got our project manager that's worked with that. We've got, you know, Kingworks has been working on that. So there's people that can be brought in and we can actually address it.
Sure.
That sound good to everybody?
Another question. Now granted, again, I'm new to long range planning and I know some of you have been on here longer. I'm assuming that there has been previous research and strategies done by other long range planning committees in the past. Did any of that evolve into what we are doing now? Are we starting from scratch again, or how does that all work out?
So that's how the barn came about. So on our last big survey, the questions were, what do you want to do with the dance barn? The dance barn is barn 8. And the question was, what do you want to do with it? The overwhelming majority wanted to preserve that building. It's the only piece of history that dates back to the original ranch.
I understand the survey. I read the survey.
But that's how we make, so when we do that, you're linking budget to strategy, right? And so what we did is we aligned that feedback to help plan because that building has sat there and nothing was happening. This has been, I've lived here a decade and these conversations have occurred for a decade. And there's a lot of anecdotal evidence and a lot of talking and people skewing data to get the outcome they want. So we actually put all that together. We got community feedback, which was the most important part. And the community says, I want to save this building. The other thing the community said is that they were willing to, if necessary, build another smaller, more cost-efficient building to house the gym and the other rooms. So that aligns with what we're doing, right? Like it impacts the planning. So, you know, we made that determination about that. The other thing that we got out of the way was the golf course, because that tends to, for some bizarre reason, you know, seems for the longest time was you know, an issue, a dividing point in this community. And so again, that's where people, a lot of anecdotal comments about, we don't want the golf course, right? We took that survey and that is not what people said. The majority of people did, all they wanted was the golf course to be self-supporting. It has become that, right? But they weren't saying they wanted to get rid of the golf course. And the other thing is we found is we just need to do better there needs to be a better relationship between the community and the course to invite the community into it more, right? because that's a lot of the issue with that, and that's what we determined. I hope that helps you a little bit with your question.
Thank you.
Nancy?
Let's go back a step further than the current plan to repair the Barn 8. For a long time, I moved here in 2006, and the plan seemed to be to let the barn rot on its foundation sooner better than later, like the rotunda actually did rot on its foundation and have to be torn down. But to let Barn 8 do that and build a event center, $11 million. It was going to be the largest private event center in Whatcom County. That was a plan, and that would have happened if that particular board didn't get voted out. People did not want a massive dues increase to pay for that. By the way that was set up, it was 4.5% interest. And if you didn't want to pay annually on your share, you could pay up front $5,000 to take care of your property's piece of that assessment. Well, a lot of people don't have $5,000 in their back pocket. I mean, some of us do, some of us don't, but that's an awful obnoxious thing to drop on people. And at the time, because of a law change, 5-member board could put it on, 5 members of the board could put that budget on the ballot, and it's virtually impossible to get voted down. That's when the 7% cap on increases bylaw came in. So that same attitude is out there, except it's not being called an event center. It's the same strategy to let the barn rot in place until it can be replaced. Well, it's going to take a lot longer to rot than people thought, because it's in actually pretty good shape. And well, I've said that bit. For those of you who remember the rotunda, it needed new windows. New windows were budgeted. New windows were not put in. And it literally mildewed to death and was torn down.
Gosh.
Todd, this is a more informal meeting than the board meeting, just so you know.
Oh, for the hand raising?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, AJ, I don't think he's seeing the hands.
Oh, okay. I really don't know how to do this stuff anymore, to tell you the truth. It's been a little while. But not to go backwards, but when I heard Barbara's question, I thought she was meaning like older LRPCs, committees and what they've done. We do have like some old documents from that stuff, but touching on the barn, I mean, any kind of conversation where, you know, if something's not structurally sound, we've got a tenant in there. So I'm not sure how that stuff plays into the picture, other than it just, you know, some of that being political. But I don't know if that's something that the association needs to be concerned about. If we're touting that, hey, this thing isn't safe and we're having meetings and stuff like that in there, you know, that's kind of weird. But I'm interested in.
I remember being on the board my first year. We sat there and they said it could fall at any time. And I'm like, well, why are we sitting in here having a meeting then? Like,
yeah, it doesn't make any
there's
sense.
like a horde of people in the crowd out there too. It wasn't like the board meetings are now where no one comes. There was at least 30 people at every meeting.
Yeah. It's just something to be, you know, cognizant of. But so I guess we're still on agenda item 1, right?
Yeah, we're kind of like mixing, you know, discussing you know, some of this helps drive like what sort of questions do we need to really get out of the community here? You know, we're having a general discussion. You know, there's obviously a lot going on in the rec corridor, so I'm assuming we're gonna have to need to ask some questions regarding that.
Okay,
You
just makes
know.
sense. I'm just trying to keep track here since I'm new to this one.
Have
So-
to, you know, there, again, with what we're calling the pavilion right now, you know, there is a lot to determine about that, right? So again, we've got to identify usage, you know, new usage. We also need to make sure that that building, you know, the clock starts ticking if that building comes down. So we have to make sure that there is a complete solid plan, including you know, a plan for funding before that ever happens, because that's been an issue in the past where these buildings come down and then we have nothing. That's what happened with Barn 7. That's what's happened with the Rotunda. You know, we don't want that to ever happen again. And so, but we do need to, like I said, there has to be a good solid, what are we talking about doing with that building? There needs to be some consensus on the usage of that building. And yes, some things are basic and we know, yes, okay, meeting space, some indoor courts, you know, et cetera. You know, but you know, it's a little more complicated than that. Than that. And so we may end up needing to do a strategic planning meeting, and whatever comes out of that, we also, on that particular building, may need to consider, like we do, some smaller focus groups, or we may have to create smaller surveys just to get some additional input on specific things. And we'll kind of have to figure that out as we go along, you know, of what else do we need to identify. And the project managers will help with that, you know, help drive what information do they need and everything to move forward. So have to figure it all out tonight, I guess is my point.
Nancy?
First thing we need to find out about that pavilion area or that ice barn is, what will the county let us do with that? It's partially habitat conservation area. It's along a shoreline. We are limited to the square footage footprint of the original barn or ice barn. We're limited height-wise to 35 feet, and I'm not sure if we're limited to 1 story in there or not.
So I did try to find out about the because there's been some talk about so that old plan was called a revitalization plan. So be aware that the community, there was a vote where that was voted down overwhelmingly by the community. That's what Nancy was actually pointing to, is the revitalization plan, which would have torn down the ice barn and the dance barn and then rebuilt a new community center, that mega bucks community center. They called that a revitalization plan. And it also included like those fire standpipes and some spit work out at the marina. Most of that work has occurred, except, you know, we've done the work over the last few years that was needed on a lot of that stuff without having to implement a special assessment. But you know, again, the barns are the piece of the picture that haven't been fully addressed yet. They've been, you know, budgeted preliminarily and planned preliminarily, but now we have to drill down on it. But that old revitalization plan, I do know at least one board director has pulled out the drawings for the old Barn 7, which is that green square, you know, the square that we have now. That's where Barn 7 was. And it was a big 2-story building was set to replace both the dance barn and Barn 7. And so that building will not go where the ice barn is. I know that there's been some talk about wanting to use that. You can't, it's too big. I did try to find out about the the height, I think you could potentially do 2 stories and 35 feet height with a 35-foot height restriction, but the roof would have to be flatter than what we'd probably want it to be.
Yeah.
And everything. So yeah, those are, I think those are good. So my thought is if we, like if we plan a strategic planning meeting where we're focusing on the barns, if we ask the board and this group to write preliminary questions to give to the experts that'll come in and, answer questions, then maybe they can provide these answers to us when they come, right? Like we can give them some preliminary questions and then hopefully they'll actually have the answers to them when we meet with them.
So, just getting back to the soundness of the structure, how many opinions do we have at this point on the healthfulness or the unhealthfulness of the structure of that barn? Do we know?
I think there was 2 structural reports, if I recall, over the last 10 or 15 years, if I
So when-
remember correctly.
When was the last one?
most everything comes back saying the barn's structurally sound. I mean, the thing's made out of original Whatcom County old growth timber, like the thing out and it's likely probably cedar. It's pretty rot resistant, like structurally, but the outside obviously is not. And, most of it comes down to as long as you're not trying to change the use of the facility, which it's currently just a community space for our community members to meet and like kick off, front and to do their activity in the rec corridor essentially. If, if you want to have like alcohol serving weddings inside the dance barn, you're talking about major changes that make the building probably infeasible. But if, you're talking about just continuing to use that structure the way it is, they're not going to impose all these new seismic codes or fire hazard codes or things on that. There will be some ADA stuff we might have to address because that's somewhat inevitable. But usually if you're not changing the use or upgrading the use of the building, they're not going to impose those, if you're just trying to rehabilitate your building for what it is, and I think it's a functional space. It needs to be sealed up from the outside, and then we'll need to spend some money again on the interior. Just, I mean, new carpet and trim and things like that go a long way, and paint go a long way, and it's not that overly expensive to do that kind of work.
So it seems like we have large groups meeting in there now. The church, right? I mean, it seems like that would be a similar size group to a wedding hosting.
We can have weddings, you just can't have alcohol.
Just not alcohol.
Is my understanding. I could be wrong, but my understanding was weddings would be allowed, but not many people want weddings without alcohol, and that's kind of the concept of an open air pavilion too. Like you could have an open air and then have a bar. You can have beer garden. Beer gardens are much easier than alcohol inside enclosed buildings.
Oh, okay. Well,
In California, it was up to the caterer and their license that would determine alcohol consumption. Is that the same in Washington?
Was that when they wanted during that revitalization push, the former general manager actually went to the fire marshal and actually asked him to review that building. And that's what triggered this thing where we can't serve alcohol, because it was specific to these events, because what they were doing were they were hosting these jazz events. There were candles there and liquor. And so the fire marshal said you can't do that anymore unless you put in sprinkler system. which is, you know, pretty expensive to retrofit a sprinkler system in the building. So instead, the association just chose to not serve alcohol inside there. But they, what I do want to point out one thing, AJ, when you talked about the ADA, so so this building does have, the work, for, already has been permitted by the county. And, because the board approved this last year, they obligated the funds last year. And the county, has, done the permitting. And in exchange for us, making that dock ADA compliant, the boat launch dock, they waived the, requirement to do any ADA upgrades on the barn. Now, that's not to say we wouldn't want to do that. That's part of the discussion that we need to have as the strategic planning team, right, with the board to help decide, do we want to, because that's another $100,000 on that building if we want to make ADA upgrades. But we don't have to, the permit doesn't require us to.
I would be in favor of having a meeting with, you know, members of the board. I think when it comes time to doing the survey, which will probably be super quick, we need buy-in, at least present to the board as much as we can, because I'm sure you guys remembered when we did the survey before, we received so much flack and kickback on the most minuscule things, as volunteers creating a survey to get people's input. It was almost like, you know, people didn't want to have the community's input on things. So I think the more that we can get board input, or, you know, a collaboration, will be good into, you know, satisfying those types of needs. There's always going to be an underlining political portion of that you really can't do anything about, but I do think having a joint meeting would be awesome.
Is anyone opposed to requesting the board having another joint meeting to kind of specifically discuss the rec corridor and the major structures in it? I think it would be good then if the committee would relook over like the SWOT analysis and the vision for the rec corridor specifically. You know, and if you have any additional feedback, anything you would want to add to strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, you know, threats. Any thoughts on the vision statement that's written? You know, I think we should try to get that finalized up, and we could bring this back to the board and kind of come to a consensus on it as a whole, as a strategic planning team. And then maybe we could do similar exercises, you know, maybe it's not a SWOT analysis, but more of some sort of visioning exercise for each of those structures to, you know, what do we vision are the uses, you know, in these buildings, you know, that type of thing. And maybe we can, you know, get to some level of, you know, consensus on how to move these things forward. Cause yeah, they just have sat idle for decades almost now. We're getting to the point where we can almost say decades instead of just a decade, like, and it's like,
Problems,
you know, I
yeah.
mean, there was a finance committee in like 2018 that they made a motion to put no more money into the Barn 8.
Right.
And that
need to do
happened,
that.
and then they just programmed like $40,000 a year for emergency repairs if the barn started to leak or something, and it's, you know, but I think it looks like we're all in agreement with trying to maybe schedule that, so Sonia and I can work on trying to collaborate with Keith and Joanne on getting something scheduled and set up in the next several weeks or so. Rick, got a question?
Yeah, so no, well, just another thought is I think in this discussion, we need to figure out where those two big cargo containers of documents have got to be stored because that's a lot of stuff. that needs to go somewhere, either be digitized or I mean, that's a lot of stuff in there that needs to go somewhere. And if that barn's coming down, which looks like it's needing to do here pretty soon, that's another, I guess, piece of the puzzle that we need to not overlook.
Yeah, you know, and I know Joanne had looked into, you know, utilizing a portion of the sunshine room in the barn 8. You know, at one point, some people didn't like that idea, so, you know, if that is gonna get utilized, if we are gonna utilize space in the rec corridor barns for archive storage, then yeah, I think we need to determine, I guess, if we are, is what I'm trying to say. That's part of that,
Yeah.
you know, usage vision.
Mhm.
You
Or the
know,
clubhouse, old office
Hey,
space.
we still have to, yeah, because we gotta kind of figure out the clubhouse too, so it's gonna it'll impact something we're working on, whether it's the barns or the clubhouse, so it's definitely. And is that something, I don't think that's something that we would need to put on the survey, because that's more operational and board type of a input. I think on figuring that out, so yeah, but you're right, we need to kind of drill down on that one.
When are we looking to get the survey out?
So I would like, sorry, AJ. I would like to see this survey. So we've got our meeting scheduled for the first Thursdays of every month. And what I'm hoping is that AJ will let us communicate via email on some of this stuff, so that we can have a draft survey ready to discuss at our next meeting, and then, approve it to go to the board, and then get it out. Because we're going to be into, budget planning season at that point, and we really need those responses back before, the budget is finalized. But, you know, so I think it's going to be really important that we get it done and have it ready to go. Uh, You know, the draft needs to be done, I think, by the next meeting.
Okay. And then are we going to be doing, sorry if I'm jumping ahead here. Are we going to be doing like the hard copies again and so on and so forth?
Well, I think that's something to think about. So when I
something we
talked
have to discuss.
yeah, because when I talked to Joanne, so she suggested, so there is a way that where we can just, she can still create the survey, even though we don't have like a member portal or anything like that. But each of the members can be assigned a unique number that would be a login number for them to complete the survey. And then, so we could do it electronically. One of our biggest problems last year was the association. I mean, not last year, sorry, in 2020, right? The association didn't pay for a robust survey monkey. That's what we were using. And we had to code over 5,000 responses manually, which took us 3 months to do, four of
Ugh.
us working. Yeah. So, but Joanne is saying that she can set that up, which will be a huge help. We could potentially then advertise in the views and send out postcards, right? To tell people, go online, and then we just have to decide, do we want to do a random sampling mail out, or do we want to tell people we can send out a hard copy, or you can pick up a hard copy, if need be, or if they wanted to.
I like the latter. Send it out if need be.
Yeah, last time, because it had been a while since the survey had been done, we did a online survey, but we also did a random sampling of the community to see if it, you know, kind of mirrored up with the online survey. Especially because we were just, you know, basically sorting from IP addresses, you know, to filter out people taking the survey multiple times, because we didn't have that unique address.
Did it
online.
did it correlate pretty well?
It did. It's,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, if you look in the agenda packet, at the 2020 survey, you can see, I think the document itself, because it's that 2020 survey document is more than just a survey. It's kind of the whole process and outline of it all. It's,
Mhm.
you know, like a report on the survey essentially. So
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
see the two different responses, and there was a few things where the online banter that happened on Facebook was a little bit more fervorish in the survey that was done online than it was in the like written responses, you know, so. Yeah,
Hmm.
but that could be correlated to the online audience of Facebook people are the online survey takers more than, you know, doing a hard copy. Who knows?
Topics, like you said, I had about a 10% difference. Whatever the hot topic on social media at that time was, that was the only variance. Everything else was within, so we know we can get a good response, a good online response, right? A good credible online response. We just need to implement it better than we did last time. The other thing that I would change in here, which we're not real, I mean, it's not really that important, but one of the things we did, because we were in COVID, and so we were trying to tell people, thinking of the 12 months prior to the lockdown, which caused a lot of issues, and then in between there was like a completely new board majority. So there's a performance, like thing in there where people were answering, uh, you know, we need to be real clear. We need to get our language correct, because if we're going to use these things as, also as a performance measurement, maybe my thought was that we're very specific and we just say thinking only of 2023, let's say, when we're asking these questions about the board and about the GM, et cetera, then we're very specific to a time frame, and it's not so weirdly confusing to people, because they may go, I don't know, I like the board now, but I didn't like that other board. You know what I mean? So we want to make sure that, because it's real important that we get good measurements on that. It'll help. And look at that. There is a draft survey. It has those questions on there. AJ, if you want to stick them back up, since we jumped over into the survey, those questions, it says examples. Those are the things that a couple of them were on the 2020 survey. I just left them in there, and then I put the advisory votes on here, just really not because they don't.
Pull up?
Oh, the draft survey. The new one, it should just look like a printed blank. Yeah, that one right there. So there should be pages that have the word example typed across them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So these are the capital questions. And so I can't read that, but let's see. Okay. This thing with the clubhouse, right? And again, this is just an example, because you know what I'm saying? These are the things we need to flesh out, right? What are the options? What are we trying to find out, right? But that's an example of some questions. This particular question, by the way, I actually had Brian Krulak look at this question as well, because that's really the golf clubhouse. And so it's kind of relevant if we're going to, one of the things we also want to focus on is increasing our non-dues revenue, right? So that so much burden isn't put on the membership, and it'll help the association grow. So I did kind of ask him his thoughts on that, and he okayed some of this language in here about some of the choices for the indoor space. And then but I left advisory votes on here just primarily just to show you an example of how questions can be asked, right? So these are the things that we kind of, you know, think of it, think about it as a member, right? Like, you know,
Yeah, I think the goal at this point would be for, you know, I don't, we're obviously not gonna come up with the questions tonight in our meeting here, but. You know, I'd like everyone on the committee to, you know, think about it and send an email to the committee. You know, with kind of some suggestions of, you know, questions. You know, focusing on the things that need to get dealt with more in the immediate, you know, and then. We probably need, you know, at least a question or two. You know, on the long term, on like the midterm too. Of stuff, you know, the next kind of set of projects to start kind of trying to, you know, plan some of those things out, so.
so there's one thing to think about, that's gonna be important is the connected trail system, because on the last survey and on every legitimate survey that had occurred before that, members expressed an overwhelming desire to have sidewalks, which is not possible out here. So in the last survey, we had hoped that we'd be able to offer sidewalk alternatives when we redid the roads. The thing is, it's not practical to do that. You would have to actually relocate the roads, even with the smaller paths and everything. You've still got ADA requirements. There's requirements about strollers, and you know, so the width causes a huge issue. It's way too expensive. The board did approve last year, I think it was $71,000 or $72,000 to do a trail, what would you call that, AJ? An analysis of
Like a
or
master plan for, you know, kind of a connected. Interurban type trail system, so that, you know, like a trunk trail system that gets people. An ability to walk from gate 5 all the way down to the market, to the rec corridor, to the golf course. You know, and then all the people down, you know, in gates 1 and 2 up towards Lookout and, you know, gate 5 and things like that. With the trails and stuff. And so, yeah, it was, you know, it was mostly to plan out that initial connected kind of trunk trail. It's obviously not gonna be this like spider web of trails everywhere. You know, that would have to continue to be fleshed out. It would be looking for those connections and those green spaces, or. You know, there's a lot of stuff that would go into that, you know, from. Can we even use lots that were put in a conservation easement for a trail to enhance safety in our roads? Like, will the county even let us do something like that? I don't know. Can we use our platted green spaces, you know, that are not lots that were decommissioned, that are just platted green space for trail systems? You know, all that type of stuff. We have lots of keyways and stuff that we might have to, you know, investigate whether they're even open and available, or whether we'd have to try to reclaim them for use. All the, you know, there's wetlands, there's slopes, all sorts of stuff to consider. So yeah, but that was something the community, in every survey that's ever kind of been done, trails have always been high priority item for people.
Right, but the issue here with our planning process is that a connected trail system is millions and millions of dollars. So one of the things is that we really have to look at this is, you know, phasing something like that in, setting priorities. It is a big deal. You know, and again, we'll need to gather a lot of community input about, you know, what areas are important. Nancy actually mentioned something regarding that too, a possibility. Nancy, do you want to?
Are you talking about the way to get across the extra gate 1 exit? Because we always hear a lot about gate 1 needs an emergency exit. Other you know, they only have the one way out. And there is a way to do it that I don't think would break the bank. And that we have that golf course bridge across Austin Creek. It's by the library. And that's a high capacity or a high load bridge. You could drive cars across it and probably trucks, and it's wide. We are planning to repave golf cart paths in like 2025 and 2026, unless that goes away too. But the golf cart paths are about 6 feet wide. At least that's about what they looked like. You can put a paved pathway or corridor from the marina to the Austin Creek Bridge and into the rec corridor and out gate 2. That all you'd need to do is pave an 80-foot or less piece to connect 2 of the existing cart paths. And you can get all the way across there. And that would be an emergency exit. Because face it, if there is a true emergency, nobody is going to be playing golf anyway. And the only hole that it would cross the flight path is one of the holes, and that's the number 4 hole up next to the marina. Otherwise, you just use cart paths that parallel the flight paths of balls. I mapped it out.
Nancy, didn't you also mention there's an emergency exit from gate 2 to Furwood in a post that I read?
Yeah, there's also a way to get to the water tower and out of Service Road through Furwood. It would be a lot easier though if you couldn't get out the gate 2 exit to take that golf cart path and go out the gate 1 exit.
I'm more curious, what if gate 1 and gate 1 are both affected, right? Then,
Gate 1 and gate 2 are both affected.
yeah.
You go towards the marina. You would go towards the marina because
Yeah.
that's a good staging area. So you just utilize that open area.
Mhm.
You know, but here's what happens in an emergency. AJ can probably, AJ has, so AJ works for the county, as most of you guys know. And so like during that big flood in November of 2021, so AJ was out there dealing with rescuing people and all of the, not, that wasn't his job, he was, but it turned into everybody's job, I think. But the reality is that in a situation like that, you know, we were cut off from everything. Our everything went down. The internet went down. Our staff could not get in. It was primarily Josh and I, because AJ was out working for the county, and we were taking direction from the Department of Emergency Services, the Sheriff's Department, and they tell us what to do. So they'll dictate through, and at one point we actually lost that their system went down. And so we were having to communicate with them through the fire department out here, because they were having to communicate via radio. That was, it was crazy. But the reality is so in that particular instance, we had people wanting to evacuate because water was coming up. But they were like, do not evacuate, you know, shelter in place, because they were having to do too many rescues out there. And it was depleting their resources. It was a problem. People were dying. And so in those situations, they have a plan, and they have people you know, that will tell us what to do. So if gate 1 and gate 2 are cut off, they'll tell us exactly what needs to happen in this association. You know, where do people need to go? They'll tell us that. We don't have to worry if something like that happens. We've been through it.
Anyway, running that extra 80 feet to connect the trails to get people from gate 1 to gate 2 is just another option for people to move around without spending a whole lot of money and doing something you basically have to do anyway, which is resurface the cart paths.
So, I guess at this point, I would say people should think about it, over the next few days and, send some emails with some, even if we want to just start with, if you don't think of a question, but you have like a topic that you think, and you just want to throw that topic out there, and then someone else could maybe write a question surrounding it if you can't think of the right wording or whatever. So, obviously the rec corridor is a big priority, on trying to determine, some stuff with that, the marina, there might be some questions to discuss there. Yeah. So I guess I don't know if we need to. I guess, Sonia, did you have anything else you wanted to discuss regarding kind of reviewing strategic planning and, how that transitions into survey and stuff? We can, and if we get some draft survey questions put together, then we can Sonia and I can work on compiling those up into like a document for our next meeting. And then we can make some final decisions and maybe send, a recommendation to the board on like a final or we call it a LRPC draft survey, kind of thing.
AJ, by next meeting, do you mean the one we're going to have to discuss the barns? Or do you mean one where we're going to finalize the survey? Or are they one and the same?
I think our next monthly meeting, probably.
Okay.
I think that's me and Sonia are talking about trying to hit for a target.
When the
that way, hopefully we could try to have that strategic planning meeting before then, maybe, sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we could get something scheduled. I don't think we would need as long of a meeting as we had the last time if we, focus on the specific topics of the 2 barn facilities.
Do you think we can come up with, once this meeting takes place, or I don't know when the best time to do this is, but can we set up some milestones to hit for, having the questions done, which you're talking about, getting the word out to the community and, just in general, so that we're not up against the wall on anything and we know we have enough to plan for, especially, I'm thinking about actually getting it in front of people and also preparing people that the survey is coming. And then on that, I think that's another good reason to have board's participation so that they can do their job of, helping out and getting the word out to the community for participating in this. I want to see this like just blow every other one out of the water. So it would be kind of nice to make sure that we're, trying to get a lot of feedback.
Yeah, Sonia and I were just talking this afternoon before the meeting about, and we were gonna put kind of a timeline or a schedule together. I know with the 2020 long range planning, we kind of had like a planning task force that kind of put together an outline of like exactly what you just said, a schedule, and kind of tried to keep the committee on task and on schedule. So we'll work on getting that put together, and we can send it out to the committee before the next meeting, even to just have everyone kind of look at it, and we can all kind of get on the same page with what that would look like and what you know, may or may not be reasonable, and have that discussion as well.
Okay.
Is there anything else we want to talk about regarding the planning retreat or the survey? So our action items are to kind of throw out some topics or some potential questions to the committee in email, and then so, you know, we'll work on compiling those up for everyone to review at the next meeting. And then also please take a look at the rec corridor analysis, SWOT analysis, and see if there's anything you'd like to add or anything like that. To any of that, and that'll be kind of the main focus and starting point for our next, if the board will agree to another strategic planning meeting. Rick?
So, in the previous surveys, did the long-range planning committee or the board reach out to the membership for any ideas about questions or topics, or do you think that's just going to create too many challenges?
One of the things that we did is because at that time, there was just so much of the same stories, and that, like I was talking about, the same anecdotal evidence of everything we had all heard for years and years. So primarily we focused on those things we had all heard before. Oh, you know, we can't do this, or, you know, like I said, nobody wants the golf course, etc. You know, we were trying to find the path forward together, right? And eliminate all of this just guessing game, and start to work towards a future together. So you know, I guess, so no, we did not put anything out to the community, but we did have options in there. I mean, it definitely, we allowed a lot of room for people to, I mean, people really responded heavily on there. If you, like I said, there's 5,000 unique responses. Everybody commented. It's
A lot of written
interesting.
word in the survey
Yeah.
results,
Yeah, and
because there was a
so
lot of room for just comment, you know. Some
Yes.
people took
Okay.
some people took some liberties there, but
Yeah. Well, I sometimes, you know, the perception maybe is all kind of top down instead of grassroots up, and I don't know the history on all of that. Certainly, we want to have continuity in having very similar questions or the same questions asked over time, so that we can chart hopefully progress and increase satisfaction from the members in certain areas over time. But as urgent issues change too, we have to be able to be flexible and be able to look at those as they come up as well. So it's a little bit of I don't know. I just kind of just thinking out loud here, trying to figure out, you know, trying to minimize potential flack, if you will, from the members.
what do you think would be the best methodology for, I mean, we're like kind of getting into a survey for a survey.
Yeah, exactly. No, I get that, and I don't know.
Actually,
Maybe
I think I know how to address that. But and Rick actually brought this up during the strategic planning, but like the fireside chats, we could
Yeah.
do it. We could actually do one that's specific to, let's talk about the, you know, because one of the things that we did do with that survey is that we were listening to comments people were making at board meetings, right? And
Mhm.
also the town halls, because
Mhm.
one of the things that has come up at the last two town halls, comments have been made that we have a multi-generational community, and we're not doing anything for the seniors. There was a lot of focus on the young families, et cetera, the playgrounds, but
Mhm.
nothing for, you know, the seniors. And so, you know, that's something we need to consider, right? And so I think,
Mhm.
yeah, that we could potentially have a fireside chat to let people give their input, and then we can, I think, I mean, that's my thought. What do you guys think?
That
You,
yeah,
I like
be
that.
one option.
Yeah, that's really good. And plus, I mean, you can also plan for the next survey by ending it with, what question did you want to see asked that wasn't asked, and get some,
Sure.
open
Yeah.
ideas there too.
Yeah.
All right, well, Sonia and I will reach out to the board and see what we can get, what traction we can get on scheduling that meeting, and we'll look for some additional feedback from you all that are here, and even the committee members that weren't able to make it tonight. The next item on the agenda is comprehensive plan. This is something the 2020 long range planning kind of started to put the structure and the bones together. And we made the determination that we were going to kind of mirror the Whatcom County comprehensive plan, because that is essentially the jurisdictional government that we fall under. They have jurisdiction over Sudden Valley. And so it made a lot of sense where possible. There's obviously a lot of things counties and cities have to deal with that HOAs do not. But where possible, we were going to try to follow the same plan elements that the county has in their comp plan. They have specific sections that they're required to make determinations and make plans for, per the Growth Management Act. And so, we did our best. And so I think kind of just tonight was just kind of a general overview of what that, looks like, and we'll start to put some documents in front of you guys here shortly, for your review on that. I think we want to try to stay, focused on the strategic planning and the survey initially here. But we have some documentation. I don't remember if, did you include that in the agenda packet, Sonia? Yeah, so in the agenda packet, there was a page on the elements of Sudden Valley's comprehensive community plan. And those kind of come straight from the Whatcom County comprehensive plan. And so, yeah, basically,
Line
there's
with our
community
mandates.
development, association services, parks and recreation, infrastructure, facilities, non-dues revenue, and then planning policies and policies. And so, I would recommend to all the committee members, if you've never looked at the Whatcom County Comprehensive Plan, to go to their website and take a look at it and review it. It goes into all sorts of things, from land use and parks and recreation and, all different types of planning for communities as a whole. And so I don't know if there's a whole lot for us to focus on tonight on this. But we wanted to kind of get it in front of you guys, so that you can start to familiarize yourself with what that looks like. Did you have anything, Sonia, you want to?
No, it's exactly that, because we do need to complete it. We did start it. But again, we, there's been a lot going on. It was very difficult to, to do all of the work of the board and everything like that, that was needed over the last couple of years. And then also, focus on putting the, so much paperwork together. We don't get any, staff support. So these documents we create and we do all the work on them. And so it's pretty time consuming. And AJ was president, I was treasurer, Josh was vice president. And they both work full-time jobs. So, it was just not possible to complete it. And we did not have the funds to pay a professional to come in. We do have one of our committee members, whom you guys met during that planning meeting. has agreed to help work with us on this because he actually is a planner and deals with this in his regular job. So we're pretty confident that with his assistance this year, we'll be able to get all the pieces together and get this main foundational document in place. And then every 3 years, as this planning process cycles, then that foundational document will just have the updates in it.
So, yeah, I mean, there's really not a lot to get into. Also getting on an hour and a half here, and I don't like to try to keep people too long. Our board meetings go long enough. So I definitely try to keep committee meetings to under 2 hours for sure. But I think, it'd be really good for the committee members to go and look at the Whatcom County Comprehensive Plan if you've never looked at it. Some of it can be a bit of a word salad and stuff, and there's a lot of stuff to it. There's a lot of different maps and things that go into it and different figures. It's not just all words, but some of it is a bit wordy and things like that. But I think it's important to kind of wrap your head around, you can see all the different things the county's having to plan for, and then you can take what your knowledge of Sudden Valley and go, well, that doesn't really apply to us. The HOA doesn't really have to deal with that. The county is the one who's going to deal with that. So maybe our comprehensive plan is largely just mirroring and saying we're going to follow what the county, says we need to do in these areas. And then where we do have control over certain things, like we obviously have control over like our parks and recreation here, we'll have a more our neighborhood and HOA specific elements and things like that. So, and some of them might have a mixture of the two as well. There'll be certain overarching, I think Michael mentioned it at the strategic planning meeting. There's countywide planning policies and things like that in that comprehensive plan. And so like, we can't just be like, oh yeah, we don't care about that. We're not going to follow that. Like, and there's likely, it's been a bit since I've been in it myself, but there could be, there's obviously specific planning policies related to the Lake Whatcom watershed and stuff that we need to be familiar with and aware of. There's also code, Whatcom County Code, and the Lake Whatcom watershed overlay district, that now has a stormwater utility attached to it as well. So there's a lot of stuff that people need to kind of, you don't necessarily have to understand it all in its fullest, but you need to be generally aware of it to be able to make some of these decisions and to deal with some of the planning elements of some of these projects and some of the the visioning for what our community continues to look like into the future. So, and then the last thing too was just if Sonia included the bylaws in the agenda packet that we put together. That technically the bylaws spell out that our committee members have terms. And so I wasn't necessarily going to put everyone on the spot tonight here, because usually when I did that in the past, I got a bunch of crickets back at me. But essentially we would need I think it's 9 total spots with 2 board directors, so 11 total committee members. I think 3 3-year terms, 2 2-year, or 3 2-year terms, 3 1-year terms. We would need to set up the committee members, and then the board chooses the 2 new board members each year. But the committee members would get set up as, so if you feel like you want to participate, ongoing, and you really like to continue to move forward and be involved in the planning process, you volunteer for a 3-year term, or if you want a little bit less, you could volunteer for a 1 or 2-year term. So, but in some way we have to basically, I believe the board requested that we address that, because we don't have any outstanding terms for the committee members that are approved by the board to be on the committee this year. So everyone's basically square one. So I guess I would just ask that you guys think about that, and you could maybe even send an email to the committee on that, on what you'd be willing to do, you know, or if you're certain on what you would like to do, you know, now you could speak up, but yeah, I would like to try to maybe get that finalized at our next meeting as well, too.
Do we have 9?
Not
non-full
yet.
Staff members?
I think we have that 7. I'd have to look at it.
Okay.
Six.
6. So we need 3 more. And yeah, so
Hypothetically, what happens if we don't get 3 more?
Basically, we've
they
talked
would
to the,
probably just be a 1-year term then, those seats, and they'd be open again next year. And ideally, the people that are on here would sign up for a 3 and a 2-year term, so we can continue some continuity moving forward so that, you know, things don't get dropped and left behind.
when the bylaws are, when you cannot meet the requirement that's placed in the bylaws, nothing happens. You can't be, there's no action, no legal action or anything that can be taken because we're endeavoring to do that. We can't help, you know, we're not responsible that people aren't applying for it. We encountered the same thing with ACC and N&E repeatedly every single year. There's, you know, people don't want to apply for those committees. And so the bylaw requirements just are never met with them. So, you know, we're a fully functioning committee with 6 people, you know, as long as we reach our quorum and everything, you know, we'll be okay. It'll be fine. We'll be all right. It'll be all right.
I mean, I can do a 2 or 3 year. I don't have a preference. Maybe see if other people have a preference.
I have a preference for people that are interested in planning. I really would like to see people step up and commit that time because I have a real concern with this is a new process that we have put in place. It's real important to, you know, as the community ages that we really, this becomes an automatic thing, right? This budgeting and planning process. And just in a very, very brief period of time, you know, we felt like we were okay since we were in the 3rd year of that planning cycle. We weren't doing anything really new last year, and we had a lot of other obligations. But what we found is that so many people, there's virtually nobody remembers the planning process, you know, and it's a little concerning because what happens if, you know, we're not around? You know what I'm saying? Like you need fresh blood to come in, but that's the nice thing about those staggered positions, right? Is that you know, you've got people that are learning it that then can teach the new people that as they come in, right? And continue the process. So yeah, the more people that say they're willing to commit long term, the happier I am about it.
Maverick volunteers to be on the long range planning committee.
Well, I think there's too many board members that way then, right? You can only have 2.
It's really disappointing to me. I don't know why we can't allow more board members.
Well, but isn't that what the lawyer said? His interpretation of that at that
What's
last board
going
meeting.
on?
So I mean,
That there were 2 there in the bylaws. It specifies 2 board members on long range planning, a total of whatever is 9 or 11. And Sonia raised the question. Wasn't that the one, Sonia, the committee you were talking about? That somebody else was going to be a 3rd one, and I guess it was Sam, and he dropped off. So so Sonia was able to stay on, but the lawyer was telling us that according to the bylaws, we could not have 3 board members on long range planning.
right.
Yeah, we just got the 2.
But
Yeah.
but I really want to encourage anybody that wants to participate, a board director, because I think these things are really important, and these, again,
Yeah, I'd be glad to participate. It's just that I wouldn't have, technically, I wouldn't have a vote, but yeah.
well, but you would have the vote that
Yeah, you have a vote
matters.
on the board though.
You have the
so,
Oh, yeah.
only,
you know,
the
and what
only
we would
vote
like
that-
to encourage with the board members is, you know, exactly what you're doing here tonight. Like, you may not be
Yeah.
on the committee, but you're here,
Yeah,
you're hearing
yeah.
what everyone's saying, you're thinking about these things, you're participating, you know, it's productive and it helps, so.
Yeah, well, glad to help. That's,
You know, especially in these are large scale, big questions, you know, community wide impacts. You know, relate to, you know, long range planning and community planning, so. You know, it's good to, you know, have you here, even if you're not a committee member. Yes, I would agree, we would probably not assign you a term, Rick.
Yeah.
You know, but I think it's perfectly acceptable to have you here and be able to speak. You know, that's kind of what the committee's for. It's an informal place anyway, so. But, you know, hopefully we can get 3 more people and, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Here and
well,
And-
and so
round out
I-
the,
I think if we agree that having some sort of a fireside chat would be helpful, sooner the better, and that might be an opportunity to invite some interested parties to join the committee as well as good ideas.
okay, well, we could try to maybe talk about a date for that in email as well. And see if we can try to, you know, get something put together. Yeah, definitely
we
a lot
currently-
easier to plan a date in email than it is in a board meeting. Where everyone's like,
Yeah.
wait, I need to look at my calendar, I need to
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
to my
yeah.
wife, I need to talk to.
Right, right.
Do we
Yeah,
currently
do one
have
of
a
those.
communications committee?
There was something at I wasn't at the last board meeting, I was ill.
No, they
Oh.
withdrew it.
right, they withdrew it, but we
Joanne's
don't,
been kind of opposed to a communications committee as it's. In the way it's been structured in the past, as it's largely staff's job to be the one that communicates. She has given some
But
thoughts
she didn't,
on ways that we could find, you know, people to be helpful and participate in communications, but I wasn't at the last board meeting. So
I got,
the
yeah,
discussion.
I thought I got the impression, and actually I don't think the agenda item got discussed, but it was about soliciting volunteers to review, I think, information on the website to kind of start purging stuff that was out of date or updating things or getting
Well,
some
because-
volunteer help, not necessarily a communications committee per se, but getting some volunteers to help with those types of activities.
but the website has to be accurate.
Right.
And so most volunteers, if you've noticed, most community members, are not even our board and committee members don't always have all of the correct information, right? And so somebody knowledgeable needs to be able to do that. And then additionally, a board director, the board will need to review some of those things. Some things are really important. I've noticed that there's weirdly been some policies that were actually, so I think it was in 2017, the board actually voted to eliminate all our policies. And then the next week, they came back and they reinstated a handful of them. And that's why we have like this broken policy things. But mysteriously on our website, every once in a while, new policies show up from like 1995. And it's like, how is that? Because they were in 2017, all of our policies were swept, And so there's just some of these things need to be, some of them are housekeeping issues that the board needs to address, right? And then, but definitely the accuracy. So you know, there's a little bit of concern. The other thing is, what exactly are they gonna be doing? Cause they don't need to have access to the association's internal hard drive, right? Because that's a
No,
security issue.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think, yeah, my impression was that they were gonna be asked to review what's visible to the public membership, and provide some edits or suggestions for edits or elimination or updates or whatever, just so that staff doesn't have to spend all that time reading through that. I don't know, maybe I misinterpreted it, but that was my
Didn't, I mean, I
perception.
don't know why it was with, I have no idea. I just know when AJ's correct when about the other aspect of the community, because one of the things that came up previously, like last year with the communications committee, when it was proposed was it was basically an events committee, not a communications committee. And we were
Yeah,
like, yeah,
communicating
forming,
about events, yeah,
yeah, exactly. And it's like,
yeah,
yeah, we don't
yeah.
need that. And they wanted to, I think they wanted to be in charge of sending out the e-blast or something like that. There was some issues about they were crossing the line of responsibility.
Yeah, yeah,
So, but I'm sure you're right. I just didn't hear that either.
Yeah,
But
the purpose of that committee was supposed to be to help promote what Sudden Valley has going on, not sending out emails or any of
oh,
that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
it really did end up crossing all kinds of places that it doesn't need to go.
yeah, yeah,
But as far as like LRPC is concerned, I think we probably have enough here and with board support to, you know, get enough information out. And I'm definitely willing to help out with a lot of that stuff myself too. So yeah, I
and
wouldn't be
the
too concerned
last,
about that.
yeah, so the survey, when you look at that last survey, all of that that design work is Josh. He designed the last survey that was mailed out, the colorful survey and our infographic and everything. And so,
nice.
and he actually used to chair that communications committee. So that's how come he knows some of the issues of how it doesn't function as well as it needs to. So I think yeah, I agree. I think we're in good hands to be able to implement all of it.
All right. Well, I think so, just to kind of recap in a couple action items. So please review the SWOT analysis and the vision statement for the rec corridor. And if you have any additions or anything that really gives you heartburn that's on there that you'd like to vent about, you know, please express those opinions. Sonia and I will coordinate with the board and Joanne and see what we can get scheduled for another meeting to discuss the barns in particular and what needs to happen to be able to make decisions to move forward in that rec corridor area as far as, you know, large scale facility projects. And then think about, you know, generally all of those things, you know, all the things we've been largely discussing at strategic planning meeting and everything, you know, for survey questions or any other topic areas that you think we should maybe potentially discuss or, you know, consider writing questions for. So either a topic area or if you want to write a question specifically and, you know, it'd be great to take time to come up with some answers to. Try your best to write something initially that's as unbiased as possible. You know, and then we can do some wordsmithing and stuff as a committee to try to flesh some of that stuff out at our next meeting. And then, yeah, I'll try to, me or Sonia will try to send a link to the Whatcom County Comprehensive Plan to the committee, just for the people that aren't here. You know, maybe spend some time, look at what Whatcom County has, maybe focus on some of the things in their comprehensive plan that are specific to Sudden Valley and where it's located, as well as their countywide planning policies that we all have to adhere to. And then we'll start to have some more discussions, you know, and work sessions on the long range comprehensive plan here moving forward. Does anybody have any other questions or concerns?
Move to
So,
adjourn. Sorry.
just, no, that's all right, Josh. Just, another tickler about the fireside chat. I don't know if you want to try to get something like that scheduled.
Oh, yes.
To incorporate into our survey questions or not.
Okay, yeah, we'll communicate by email and see if we have, you know, any volunteers who would be willing to, you know, sit at something like that. And maybe, you know, we figure out a day where we could have maybe a couple volunteers, maybe in the like in the early afternoon or late morning, and then maybe a couple volunteers in the evening. We could have 2 different sessions for people who don't work or retired,
good
and
idea.
people who
That's a
do,
good idea.
or
Yeah.
work days or versus nights, whatever.
Yeah.
Something like that, maybe like 2 hour-long sessions on the same day or something, and we can split the committee between. You know, I do better at the nighttime thing. I have to work during the day, so.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
maybe some people could do
Do-
daytime.
Do you think
Yeah.
you need to tape it? Because if it's just gonna be a chat, I mean, somebody could take notes. It wouldn't involve recording.
I think we could have a form that someone could fill out there, maybe, that they would write either a topic, an area or topic, like I said, or a specific question, maybe something like that, or. But I guess that's just kind of off the cuff,
Hmm.
my head.
I need to take
You know,
notes. Somebody will need to
We
be
can kind
there.
of flesh some of that out too, you know, over the next week
Yeah,
or so.
yeah. That's a good idea. Figure
Yeah,
out the
you're
format.
probably gonna get questions come out of conversations and stuff too, versus just adding something
Yeah.
at the door. So I think that's,
Yeah.
you know, that's
Well,
the good thing about having those forums too.
Yeah, yeah, and then also maybe just when the email goes out announcing that for people that maybe can't attend either session, that they could reply by email with a question or concern.
Yeah.
I
Seems
can run
logical.
a session.
Okay. All right, well,
Email
we'll talk
fix
to,
too, so that, because apparently half of the people aren't on our email, so when we tell people to email in, everybody's not gonna get it apparently, so we need to make sure, AJ, that
Oh.
gets fixed too.
okay.
Hmm.
All right, well, we're just about 2 hours, so I think we're pretty much adjourned unless someone has something last for the group, go to the group.
No, good input, everyone.
All right,
Yeah,
good first
sounds
meeting.
good.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I.
Be in touch.
Bye.